Yo, what's going on to all my fam out there? We are back rocking with another week of the Cannabis Diversity Report. I got my good brother from right here in Maryland with me, Otha Smith. What's good, bro? How are you?
Not bad, man. How are you, bro?
I'm good, man. It's a pleasure to finally have you on here, man. We've been connected for over a year now. What you're doing with Tetragram, and man, the way I've seen your business grow since we first connected, and the way it's taken off is so special, man. It's great to see a brother out here, making waves on the tech side of the industry, doing what you're doing, man. So let's just rap about it, man. So what's going on? As a matter of fact, it's crazy because when we first met, it was actually before I started doing all this stuff on like a national stage. I was still at the dispensary,
Yep.
working at Mad Leaf and up in Marlboro. And like I said, both of our paths have come so far since then, man. So again, just tell your story, man. How did you get started? Tetragram and where it all came from.
Yeah, man. Well, I appreciate you having me on, dog. And it's really been refreshing just to see how both of us met, 8 months ago, 9 months ago, and to see how both of us just blossom in this industry, man. So again, appreciate the opportunity to join today and chop it up with you. But yeah, so I'm Otha Smith, CEO and founder of Tetragram, also a Maryland medical cannabis patient. And, I got involved in a very bad car accident back in 2003 that has changed my whole trajectory in life. I unfortunately fell asleep at the wheel, was thrown about 100 feet and landed on my head. And, was pretty much pronounced dead on the scene. But luckily, my friend who was in the car accident with me was going to school at John Hopkins. So she's the one that ran to my aid while everybody else pretty much was like, he's game over. So she ran to my aid until the helicopter arrived. And then, you fast forward, I get out of the hospital. I'm prescribed all these crazy opioids in order to help manage my neck and back pain. And, prior to the accident, I just never used any type of pills for anything, not even a headache. Just always been more so about the holistic approach to medicine. And so, it was something I wasn't down with, just using pills every day for the rest of my life. So after 3 years of using pills, I just said, enough's enough, and got off of pills and just started using cannabis, because it's been something I'd always used throughout high school and college. So, why not use that now as a way to help medicate myself after that car accident?
Mm-hmm.
So that was huge, man. So once I made that switch to just using cannabis, a couple years continue, and then cannabis finally becomes legal here from a medical perspective in Maryland. And so I jumped at the opportunity, got my card, and like a lot of people, I thought I knew all there was to know about cannabis, right? Like having smoked it for like 15 plus years, I'm like, man, there's nothing these people can tell me. And
Mm-hmm.
I was so wrong, man, because when I entered a dispensary, terms I was just not familiar with, like terpenes and cannabinoids and different consumption methods other than a blunt or a bong. I'm like, wow, tinctures and all these other forms. So that was a whirlwind. And that's when I really threw myself into the industry and started disconnecting with people, dispensary owners, other patients. And the one thing that seemed to always be constant throughout my conversations with people was that you got to keep a journal. You got to write it down because there's just so many products to choose from. And you're just not going to be able to keep track of it all. And so I said to myself, well, I know I'm not going to write this down. And I know a lot of people probably aren't as well because everything we do is on our phone. So that's when I came up with the idea to create Tetragram. So Tetragram is a mobile app that we built as an MVP just to show proof of concept, my partners and I. And so with this initial version, it just addresses the immediate need, which is providing cannabis or CBD consumers with the ability to keep track of the products they purchase, rate the effectiveness of those products, and then they can share those personal reviews with others. And so that over time, they can look back at this data that they've compiled and say, wow, so it's not, this strain or it's this strain that is working well that is helping me with, whatever medical condition I have.
Yeah. And I think that's really important that you said too, because I think there's so many of us that have been like regular or long time cannabis users, but it's like this new frontier over the past couple of years of realizing the medical benefits and how it could really help you. Like you said, you were able to stop using opioids, to be able to transition to cannabis and it really be a lot more helpful. And looking back at that time as you made that discovery, like what was it like? How did you discover that cannabis could be like a viable option? What kind of led you there?
Well, again, it just resulted back from when I was using it when I was in high school and college. So it always just made me feel relaxed and at ease. So when I decided to just, all right, cut out the opioids altogether, I just started experimenting with different products. Like I would just go to the dispensary and try this strain and try that strain, or, try this edible. And, with CBD really exploding onto the market, it was just my curiosity that led me to try all these various products to find what would work. But I will say that given that you walk into any dispensary for the most part around the country, and there's just a Walmart selection of cannabis products to choose from. So it's like, how are you supposed to find out what works for you? And for me, being someone that's been in this industry for 5 years, I can honestly say it took me close to 2 years to find the exact dosing amount, to find the right form of product that works best for my chronic pain. So it takes time. You really got to have patience.
Yeah. And that's one of the things that's so dope about like the way that you even came up with Tetragram, because it really is solving like a specific need. And that's one of the most important things in business, right? Like so many people, like you said, you could be a cannabis user, but when you go into the dispensary, there's so many different things. Like, how do you even know, like, what you keep track of what you had, like how it impacted you? So like, yeah, like Tetragram
Sure.
is really a dope space. And so like for you to do it and come up with this idea, like, did you have a tech background? Like, how did you come up with the idea, like, to even do that?
So that's a great question. So I did spend 3 years of college as a computer programmer because, like, most other people when they went to, graduate high school and go to college, I didn't know what I wanted to do. Like I knew I wanted to run my own business, but not exactly what that was going to be. So my dad was a computer programmer, and I saw that he did pretty well for himself. So I was like, I'll give it a shot. And so I spent 3 years in computer programming at Bowie State University. I definitely shout out Bowie.
Hey, HBCUs in the house.
Exactly. You know it. So got to shout out Bowie State. And so, I went through the process of 3 years of being a computer programmer. And then I said, this just isn't for me. So I ended up graduating in marketing. But, just looking at how every dispensary I would go to would just recommend a journal or even sell you a journal. And I would see some people with like really Excel spreadsheets or just keeping these journals. I'm just like, dude, there's such a better way. Right.
Never do all of that.
Exactly. I mean, some people really had these crazy Excel spreadsheets. And so, I knew enough of from a vision perspective, what I wanted to build, but I had to find people who could build it out for me. And so that process took 2 years for me to find my now partners who, are working with me every day in the trenches to help grow Tetragram. So it was quite a process just to find the IT side that could really help me blossom with Tetragram.
Right. And so, of course, you said it's been about 2 years that you've been working on the app, and multiple iterations of it. One of the biggest challenges that, of course, people of color face in the cannabis space is this lack of access to capital, to be able to grow your business. And I know when we look at the tech industry, right, venture capital, like my entrepreneurs of color are also less likely, to be. It's just a lot more challenges in that space. What's the experience been like for you? As a brother building Tetragram, what have been some of the challenges that you faced, and how have you like overcome those to excel and kind of get to where you are today?
Yeah, I think this is a great topic. So, building tech or any company for that matter is not cheap to do. And luckily for me, prior to leaving my corporate job, which was at Constellation Energy, so I sold electric and gas commodities in deregulated states on the East Coast. So luckily for me, I actually did pretty well financially when I was working in the corporate world. So for the years that I was building up Tetragram behind the scenes, I was saving money like it was nobody's business. So that was really vital for me in terms of getting Tetragram to where it is today, because, especially building out tech, it just is not cheap at all. But the experience since then, Tetragram, since we released it 10 months ago, is now in more than 100 dispensaries throughout the country. We have independent researchers and medical professionals that recommend Tetragram to their patients. So it's really been growing out of control organically. But to your point, it has been a challenge to raise capital. Just being that, being an African-American, the forefront of Tetragram, I've had conversations with investors, and my two business partners, one, Julius Moore, he's African-American. And then we have Lucas Rowe, who is Caucasian. And I've said this before in other conversations that, it's really discouraging that doing these conversations with these investors, on the opposite side of the table, there's no one that looks like Julius or I. Everyone looks like Lucas, a Caucasian. And so it's interesting, and it sucks at the same time that, as I start to lead the conversation, I can see all the attention starting to shift to Lucas, who is our white counterpart. And so that's, it's tough to see what happens, but what we do in those situations is just put on a different hat. So I'll let Lucas lead the charge because it seems like he's getting more attention based upon his skin color. And so you just got to learn to adapt and overcome in every scenario.
Hey, like you say, this benefit, it is terrible that we still live in a society that happens, but that is the benefit of having a team around you, strong team, people you can trust, know you're going to hold each other down. Y'all are on the same mission to move it forward.
Yeah, 100%, man. We're a band of brothers. And so, I think like anything in life, especially when it comes to raising capital or just anything you want to do to get forward progression, you just got to understand the landscape and know how to play the game. And so we know how to play the game, so we ended the win.
Facts. So like you said, man, over 100 dispensaries across the country. Who are some of the partners that you work with now? And we need to get you some more partners too, man. So if y'all listening out there, dispensary owners, cannabis business owners, I think Tetragram is a great way to meet the needs of your patients and really help them with their medicine. But talk about, from your perspective, what are some of the benefits of like a cannabis business owner of using the Tetragram platform, whether it's customer retention or different things like that.
Yeah, so I truly appreciate all the relationships that I have with all the various dispensaries and medical professionals, because without them, it would definitely be a challenge to help promote Tetragram to where we are today. And so major shout out to like Curaleaf. They're rooted in good program that's phenomenal in terms of helping to elevate Black-owned companies in the cannabis industry. So, major shout out to the Curaleaf team. Patrick Johnson is the man over there. Same thing could be said for GTI. Those are our two biggest MSO partners that really believe in the value of Tetragram that it provides to not only the consumer, but to the industry as a whole. And then Vireo Health, Vireo Health is another MSO that has been very open in helping us push Tetragram at their retail locations too. So, all these three companies from that large MSO perspective are really leading the charge to help inflict that diversity into this industry. But yeah, with the application Tetragram, like I always like to say, it's not only a tool that empowers the consumer by understanding what products, which terpenes, which cannabinoids are being effective in treating their medical conditions, but it also helps the industry, because if I look at it from a dispensary's perspective, all this aggregate crowdsourced data that we're collecting on the efficacy associated with cannabis use, it's just not really out there. There's so much data out there associated with, this vaping product is selling well, this strain is selling well, people are doing more edibles than inhalation. But once a consumer leaves a dispensary, that data is lost in terms of, okay, they bought the product, how does it make them feel? And so this aggregate data that we're collecting from consumers rating these products, it's going to help the dispensary staff make better product recommendations, because one of the first things I did when I left Constellation Energy was get a job at a dispensary to understand from an intimate perspective what the challenges are for the dispensary and what the challenges are for the consumer. And, bud tenders, some of them are more knowledgeable than others, but at the end of the day, they still have a limited data source that they can rely on to make accurate product recommendations. If you think about it, we have over 8,000 log sessions in Tetragram. And so I can drill into Tetragram and say, what products do people use for anxiety, and then show how they rated those products, and then provide that information to the dispensary so that they can make more accurate product recommendations, which creates a more loyal customer. If we look at it from a cultivator or a product manufacturer's perspective, they put all these products into the marketplace, but if you go and ask them like, okay, so, you're one of the largest, CPG manufacturers of these edibles in California, what are they good for? They're not going to be able to tell you. And so with our data, we can say, X, Y, and Z grower or package manufacturer, your product is being utilized for X, Y, and Z reasons, and that's extremely valuable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Um,
man,
and
it is.
yeah, I mean, just think about it, and because if like any product that we see in front of us, there's so much consumer reviews associated with that product that helps us make a decision. And so that also helps the manufacturer of that product know what to do in order to make that product better, and keep their loyal fan base. And so that's just currently not happening in the industry today. And then if we look at it from the medical professionals, like, yeah, there's a lot of doctors who see the benefit of cannabis and they are willing to promote it to their patients and recommend it. But there's still a large, I'd say maybe 80% of doctors still aren't comfortable recommending cannabis. And that's because they just don't have the data to back up and make them feel confident to do so. And so we can really streamline that effort too by providing this aggregate data to show these different terpenes, these different cannabinoids associated with these products is what's helping, improve people's lives.
And since the app has been running, have there been any discoveries or things that you've seen that you didn't expect, like one product being more being more effective at something, or more popular among a group that people might not have expected it would be?
Yeah, one thing that's been interesting is that we're seeing like edibles have been the go-to choice for insomnia. And that makes sense too, because like edibles over inhalation or any topical, they don't last as long as an edible. And so we're seeing a lot of people reporting some really great feedback associated with, I can't name the companies, but some really good edible manufacturers, and saying, wow, this is helping me sleep throughout the night. And that's really cool to see. I mean, I could nerd out on this data all day long, just seeing how people are rating. Like we did a report on anxiety, and it's funny how I could see certain strains that are ranked like really low as like, 1 out of 5 stars in treating anxiety. And then I look at that strain and it was like, yeah, I remember having that. That's more of a sativa strain. So of course, that's not going to work well for anxiety, So it's exciting to see with the data that we're collecting. So I'm just really looking forward to help push this out into the world to help the industry. But, the one thing that we really gotten a lot of interest in, which I didn't even think about initially with Tetragram, is our white label options. So we'll actually offer the white label Tetragram for research opportunities with universities. But one of the things that we're really gaining a lot of traction on is just with these cultivators and manufacturers, right? Because I hate to say it, but like 2-3 years ago, these cultivators and product manufacturers they had the mindset that, people love cannabis, so let's just create this strain, create this product and put it out in the market because they'll sell. Through education in this industry, people are asking more intelligent questions like, so what is this product good for? What terpenes and cannabinoids does it consist of? And so these MSOs and even some of the smaller cultivators are starting to say, wait a minute, let's do some research on this product, put it out there in 30, 40, however many people, let them use it, provide us with feedback using Tetragram's white label option, and then we'll determine whether or not to bring it to the market. So that's an avenue I never thought of exploring with Tetragram when we initially built it.
Yeah, man, that's super dope, man. Like you said, and allowing companies to really use it as a resource to be able to grow their market share, and white labeling, man, that's a huge opportunity. And I imagine you could grow there. As you look at the way that you want to develop the app, and like are there any other future like advancements or updates that you're planning on rolling into it, or is it you can't talk about it yet?
Yeah, loose lips sink ships, brother.
Hey,
so
that's a fact. That's a fact.
no doubt, man, no doubt. Stealth is wealth is how I put it. But yeah, I mean, there are some really, this first version that we built is nothing compared to what we have coming. Christmas is what we're aiming for, Q1, early Q1 at the latest of 2022. But yeah, we're going to bring the world a lot closer. I'll just say that.
And I want to go back to something you talked about before, because I think it was my experience too, because you talked about like when you were preparing to get into the cannabis industry, right? You came from like a good career, you did well for yourself. Everybody talks about like the cannabis industry, this opportunity for generational wealth and all these different things. the one thing, you know, you learn like getting that hands-on experience, right? Like actually working at a dispensary. I did that too. When I left finance, like boom, I'm going to be a bud tender. But I love the idea that you talked about, like how you had to actually save money, you had to invest, you had to like plan to build a business. It wasn't something that just happened overnight. Could you talk a little bit about like what type of advice you have and some of the things you learned, like best practices, or even from your mistakes, right? That you advice that you would give other entrepreneurs that want to pursue this industry, especially people of color?
Yeah. First and foremost, like, don't try to reinvent the wheel is what I always try to tell people. Like, don't try to jump out of your comfort zone, meaning that don't try to jump into a part of the industry that you aren't really familiar with or you just don't have the skill set for. This industry is so brand new and still on the ground level. I know it seems intimidating from the outside in to a lot of people because you see all this money being raised, consolidation happening, new companies raising tons of money. But we're still so much on the ground level in this industry that what I always recommend to people is, what are you good at currently, your 9 to 5 or whatever job you have now, and just apply that to the cannabis industry, because trust me, there's a need there. So that's first and foremost. And secondly, I always tell people is look at businesses outside of plant touching, like you don't necessarily have to be a dispensary owner. You don't have to be a grower or cultivator. Look at the ancillary side, like I'm doing with technology. There's a lot of growth in the ancillary side of the business and less headaches at the end of the day too. So, that's always a benefit there. But I will admit that first, above all, whatever position you're looking to get into within the cannabis industry, form alliances with people that can help you along the way. I mean, to hear meeting you, not even knowing that you live 20 minutes away from me, and once we met and we formed our relationship, you've helped me in a number of ways by making introductions to this person and that person. So I'm eternally grateful to you, as well as other people who have helped me along the way. So really establishing a network, I think, is really going to be key. Like I like to say, and I'm sure people have heard it before, but your network is your net worth. So plug into people.
Yeah, that's one of the best sayings that I could hear, and I would echo that advice for anybody listening, whether it's cannabis or anything, man. You definitely have to build those relationships. You never know if the person that you might meet, somebody that's a bud tender today, and 2 years from now they might be,
on the cover of a magazine.
Stuff, like, so it really is crazy just the way the world works in that energy, man. And it's so dope to, like I said, just seeing the growth and the movement, the way you've been going, man. Cannabis legalization, like you said, we've come a long way. People are understanding the medical benefits of cannabis. And certainly you're what you're doing a lot to educate people on that. I guess what would be one thing that you would share, I guess, to educate somebody who may not know about the benefits of medical cannabis and the way that it can be helpful for them and how they can use Tetragram to learn, more about that experience?
Yeah, I mean, one thing I always say to like friends who are, opposed to cannabis is I just say one word: non-toxic, right? And so with cannabis, there has not been one reported death of someone using it and overdosing or anything like that. It's just clearly impossible. The only thing you're going to have is a really good night's sleep if you overdo it on cannabis. So that's the first thing I always like to tell people, because I know there's a lot of worriness about like, well, if I take this, what's going to happen? So secondly, and everyone has heard this too, is like when you experiment with cannabis, I will admit that I think you should try with CBD first, because CBD has so many therapeutic benefits without the psychoactive ingredient that actually makes you, feel good, catch a little bit of a buzz. Try that first, and then slowly start to integrate THC into your regimen until you find that right dosing amount. Like for me personally, when I mentioned how it took me 2 years to find the right product for me, it's a 1-to-1, 10 milligram gummy. And so 5 milligrams THC, 5 milligrams CBD. I never really get the high feeling associated with it because of the CBD counteracting the THC, but it's a godsend for me. So I would just say take it slow, but you have to be patient. And again, if you're not going to use Tetragram, I would love if you would, but if you don't, just document your use with the products that you're using, because again, there's just so much out there. You're not going to be able to keep track of it. You really want to pay attention to those terpenes and cannabinoids more than the strain name or the packaged product, because that has zero bearing on what that product would do for you. So depending upon what state you're in, you might have access to the terpenes and cannabinoids associated with each product. But if not, you can ask your dispensary for the COA. I mean, they have to provide that. That's public information. So I think people really should learn the terpenes and cannabinoids, because that's really what's driving the medicinal benefits of cannabis.
Yeah, man. And yo, thank you so much. Like I feel like this is one of those episodes where people can learn a lot about cannabis. Is one of those things where it's becoming more and more mainstream. It's like we've been fed this stigma for so many years. Right? People that have never even considered using it are now like, they want to be able to use it for anxiety or pain or like all these different issues that people are dealing with. And so I love what you're doing to try to not only break that stigma, but, educate people on ways on how they can use it effectively in doing that, man. So thank you so much for coming through. Man,
thanks for having me, man. That's what I'm here for.
Yeah, so let the fam know where can they download the Tetragram app, where can they find you, follow you, the movement, and learn more along the way.
Yeah, so on our social media, Instagram and Facebook, Twitter is shut down right now. We got flags, so can't use that one, but this industry. But
right.
But Facebook and Instagram, you can find me at the Tetragram app. You can also find us online at tetragramapp.com. And Tetragram, again, is free to download on Apple and Android devices at Tetragram app as well. So please download it, and I encourage everyone to just take control of their own personal journey with cannabis. One of the things I'm always proud about is that not only myself, but my two business partners are patients as well. So, this is built for patients by patients.
Absolutely. For patients, by patients, man. We support Black business. This brother out here doing it, man. You know what I'm saying? Appreciate you coming through, bro. And we'll wrap soon. The world's open. We're going to blaze one.
Yo, you already know, man. I'm calling you after this.
Yeah, your boy, man. And peace, everybody out there.
All right, brother. Peace.